Okay, so formal good afternoon. We are continuing from where we were in the last class, that was last week. We are talking about planning, directing, controlling, formalization, basically managing the organization. And in today's class, I will be using the entire class today is all about thought provoking questions. So today I want you guys to be very alert, very aware of what is the discussion going along and be part of that discussion, because this is something which can be done only when I discuss with you. Otherwise, it will become a monologue and that will become boring. Okay. So let's start with our work. So in the previous class, we were talking about departmentation, we were talking about control, we were talking about managing our employees. And in today's class, we want to discuss things related to that only. Now, as an organization, because we are talking of fundamentals of management, let's talk of the organization as a whole. Today's discussion thought I so the first thing that I want to talk about today is responsibility. Okay, now I'll give you questions under this heading. I want you guys to tell me. Okay, so I'll take the first one just to get the flavor of how I want you guys to do it. So, responsibility. So, as an organization, who am I responsible to? The first question, if you guys remember, हमने शुरू में in our first one or two classes, we had done this concept called a stakeholder. Now, what is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is somebody who has an interest in the continued success or business operations of my organization. That stakeholder could be an e-rickshaw guy in today's case. When you are coming here, he has a stake in you guys continuously coming because he gets extra business on Sunday when the rest of the campus is closed. To the University of Delhi when it is teaching you, to even UGC that we are having classes for distance learning students. We are expanding the scope of education. So the stakeholder is everybody. Now, if I take myself as a company, what responsibilities do I bear to each one of them? So, there are certain responsibilities. So, first thing we will take is to my customers. Now, what is my responsibility to my customers? Then I will have my or investors, you can call them whatever term. Okay, and one more thing that I want to add is, which let me keep it separate only, which is ये मैनेजमेंट में ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज एथिक्स आई नो वेरी बोरिंग है लेट मी बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट काफी बोरिंग है वेरी बीनी इट इज क्वाइट बोरिंग but it is essential because ethics form a major part of corporate decision making and the way corporate decision making is seen by these said stakeholders. Okay, so what is the responsibility that a company bears towards its customers? So you guys buy any product. Let's say we take a mobile phone, whichever company, let's say it is Samsung. Now, what is Samsung's responsibility towards you as a customer? Now, you guys, now is when you guys start participating. So please wake up. I know 1 o'clock या lunch वाली class के बाद it is quite difficult to stay awake, but please try because it is going to be useful for you only. So, what is their response? So, I'll give you one part just to get the flavor again. So, when I buy a new phone, Samsung responsibility towards me is that the phone should be defect free. It should be when I open it out of the box, I press the button, everything should work the way it is supposed to work. So if it is supposed to have 8 GB RAM, it is supposed to have 8 GB RAM. I cannot have 6 GB RAM in it. They have to give me the right product for the price that I have paid. Now that product could be anything, the value could be anything. We are not getting into the value of the product. We are getting into the price equal to what you are paying for. One responsibility is to give me a guaranteed defect-free product. Can you give me other responsibilities that a company has towards its customers? In this case, again, Samsung towards a customer who has purchased a new mobile phone. That is a response. So I should give my customers I won't use the word latest technology. Perhaps let me use the word best value. It could mean for different people. So again, they will have different products at different grades. So if I am a customer who is expecting cutting edge technology, perhaps they've got that folding phone. But if I'm a customer who's a value conscious customer, they've got a M32, M33, which you and me, we end up buying the product that we would end up buying in our range. Okay, what other responsibility? You have to give updates. ये mobile phone में बहुत important है, because if you don't get updated, then your phone becomes outdated automatically. And many companies today, Samsung being one of them, they promise that we'll update a device for the next 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. They give you a commitment, X period of updates. What else? Customer support, customer service, customer support, repair, a call center, some way to connect with the company to raise your complaints or issues or doubts. That's one part. What else? Another important one could be safety. And Samsung is famous or infamous for it. If you guys remember, there was this device called the Galaxy S7, which whose batteries used to explode. Note 7 था, okay, Note 7 7 तक ठीक था ना, चलो at least I'm 50% correct. Galaxy तक भी ठीक था ना, ठीक है. Then I'm only 33% wrong. That's all right. So the point is that you have an expectation that the product is going to be safe, reliable, long lasting, with customer service and all those things. So these are all responsibilities towards the customer. Fine, good. Let's come to the responsibility towards the shareholders. और ये आज की डेट में this has become a very important topic. Why? In today's day. Why is this suddenly important today? Today I mean today आज की date 29 January, not today as in आजकल में, but today as in today genuinely. Why is this topic important today? एक होता है ना दुनिया में एक चीज होती है कॉल्ड न्यूज़पेपर्स. पढ़ते हो आप लोग? नहीं ना, सॉरी आई एम बीइंग sarcastic, प्लीज रीड. Naughty people, please read. If you don't like a newspaper except for killing mosquitoes, that's all right. Use an app, I don't mind. But see, the point is, jokes apart, but coming back to our business of management, in this course, if you are not aware of management issues in the environment, then you guys will have a problem down the road. Not only for placements, but also for writing examples in the exam. So please, my request is, please keep yourself updated with current affairs and current topics. You could use a newspaper, you could use an app, you could watch a news channel, entirely your choice. But my request is, please spend half an hour a day keeping yourself up to date. Now you do it in the metro, you do it at home, entirely your choice. But please do it because it's important. So can anybody tell me this? आज की डेट में हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स सुबह कितनों के घर पे आता है? मेरे आता है, उस पर फ्रंट पेज ऐड है उस कंपनी की. What am I referring to? And I'm sure वो Times of India में भी होगी. अगर हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स में तो I'm sure Times of India में भी होगी. Which company has been in the news for this purpose over the past 3 days? ये तो बता दो. 3 दिन में, last 3 days. Adani. तभी I am pointing to only this part. So the company has a responsibility of transparency towards its shareholders and investors because they've invested, and the company also has a responsibility towards the investors in the sense कि उनकी investment grow करे, collapse ना करे. That is why they are on that basis, on that trust is what I'm giving money to that company. Now, whatever is the outcome of this Adani controversy right now, whether it dies up, whether it becomes a major catastrophe, remains to be seen. अभी हम कुछ नहीं कह रहे उस पे. But my point is that whenever a company is faced with such kind of issues, they have a moral and ethical responsibility to keep their shareholders in the loop. कि भाई ये research करेक्ट है, इनकरेक्ट है, यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम है, वहां पे ट्रांसपेरेंसी इज देयर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टुवर्ड्स द shareholder. Now, how do I judge the responsibility of a company towards its country, state, city, whatever you want to call it, towards the civic authorities? Can you give me an example? Hanji? Example. In my class, whenever you give a point, combo offer, example. So, example though. So there could be one example which you could see. I have seen on the road. I don't know if anybody stays in North Delhi. NDPL, the Tata Power Delhi distribution, these guys who run the electricity department in North Delhi, they have got this thing called a mobile dispensary. और वो एक वैन है उसके अंदर मोबाइल डिस्पेंसरी. I've seen them in slum areas across North Delhi as a part of their corporate social responsibility, या CSR, as you would have heard this term. ये हम you will keep hearing this term in management. So as part of their CSR initiative, they provide medical services to the underprivileged people. So social responsibility के I could add on this as an example. And there are companies who do many things. Some companies run ashrams, some companies do donations. T-Series used to be the one which used to organize langars at or food distribution at a variety of religious places across the country. Part of social responsibility. I'm just giving you more examples. Okay. What else?
Sir, pollution.
Pollution. Perfect. Can you give me an example of a polluting company or a company which has polluted in the past? Let me rephrase. Some pollution is a natural consequence of business. So you drive a car, there will be emissions. Fact of life. Some we take as normal. Here, by pollution, we imply more than normal. So if your car, so I'm sure you've seen cars on the road or scooters on the road which spew a lot of smoke out of it. वो गलत है. वो responsibility का part है. But normal pollution as part of normal business activities is not the responsibility. हाँ तो उसमें किसकी मैं ये नहीं कह मैं कंपनी गलती है मैं कह रहा हूँ कंपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टुवर्ड्स व्हेन वी टॉक ऑफ पोल्यूशन वी टॉक ऑफ एक्स्ट्रा पोल्यूशन नॉट नॉर्मल पोल्यूशन. ठीक है सो यू आर राइट बट रिलायंस का देन यू शो मी द एग्जांपल वेयर दे हैव बीन पोल्यूटिंग एक्स्ट्रा पोल्यूशन. So then we will consider. I could give you one example. Sticking to pollution only, you can talk of this company, British Petroleum. You remember there was this oil spill called Deepwater Horizon in 2011-2012, where oil from the Gulf of Mexico. अगर आप लोगों को थोड़ा सा ध्यान है, this is near America. वहाँ पे there was a oil rig in which is extracting oil, and they had an oil spill. That would be an example of, in this case, pollution, or a company which is discharging untreated water into water bodies, into rivers. That would be irresponsible. That would be irresponsible behavior, which is what we are trying to look at. So pollution could come from there. Okay. Any other responsibility towards the country? एक और हम ले सकते हैं. जॉब उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है ना. ना टैक्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. जॉब देना रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है. टैक्सेस टाइम पे देना है. हाँ जी. कंट्रीब्यूट टू taxes, contribute to growth, global economy, our own economic growth, whatever. उसमें हम jobs को add कर सकते हैं, but पता नहीं, somehow or the other I don't feel giving jobs is my responsibility, but paying taxes on time, contributing to the country's growth is my responsibility. Jobs are a byproduct of that responsibility. मैं business grow कर रहा तो उसमें jobs की जरूरत है. But हाँ, there are certain companies, especially in the mining industry, for whom job creation becomes a responsibility because they are exploiting natural resources of those particular people जिनके land पे वो mining हो रही है. So उनको job देना responsibility बन जाती है because that's a consequence of my business actions that they are out of there. Maybe their farm, maybe their school, maybe their shop, maybe their factory which I have broken down or I have torn down to build a mine. वहाँ पे मेरी responsibility job creation पे भी आती है. Another responsibility towards the country could be, I'm just taking the last example for this. I want you to look at the example of, I have a responsibility towards the safety of the area in which I am operating, the health of the people around where my factory is based. So pollution, release of chemicals. Another example would be Bhopal gas tragedy. That is part of my responsibility towards the country. Okay, now comes the most difficult discussion in the world, which is ethics. Why is ethics seen as so difficult from a corporate perspective? What is the ultimate aim of a company? Why is a company created? What is its aim? To earn profits, precisely. But in the pursuit of those profits, ethics become a problem. ठीक है? I am not going to talk of in the sense of the Hindi movie ethics, not that, not that Bollywood romanticized version of ethics, but in reality, I'm going to talk of ethics from the perspective of, let's say, again sticking back to responsibility. So, can you give me examples of companies in India or elsewhere which you know of who've had some ethical challenges? फेलियर कह लो, आप उसको चैलेंज ऑफ बैड रिपोर्टिंग कह लो, फाइनेंशियल फ्रॉड कह लो, ऑल ऑफ दैट कम्स अंडर एथिक्स. सो कैन यू गिव मी एन एग्जांपल ऑफ कंपनीज और इंडस्ट्रीज वेयर एथिक्स हैव बीन अ प्रॉब्लम? किनकी? एमएनएम, ये कौन सी है? महिंद्रा? हाँ. एग्जाम्पल? अच्छा, so basically जो ये जो आपकी ये चेन मार्केट जो हमें when we used to know it as यूरेका फोर्ब्स, हमारे टाइम पे यूरेका फोर्ब्स होता था. when I was your age, long time back, it was यूरेका फोर्ब्स. these companies जो एमवे है, आपका टपरवेयर है, all these companies which are dependent on sales reps who are normal people, not professionals, but people like housewives, for example, who are doing something extra. वहां पे many of them turn out to be पॉन्जी स्कीम. पॉन्जी स्कीम सुना है आपने ये टर्म कभी? जब आप एथिक्स के बारे में पढ़ोगे तो ये सबसे पहले आएगा. सो अ पॉन्जी स्कीम इज समथिंग जैसे आई प्रॉमिस माय कस्टमर्स 20% रिटर्न्स, इन्वेस्टर्स. यू स्टार्ट गिविंग मी एफडीज और मैंने कहा मैं एक साल बाद आपको 20% दूंगा. बट इन दैट 1 year पीरियड आई हैव मार्केटेड माई सेल्फ सो नाइसली दैट मोर एंड मोर कस्टमर्स कीप कमिंग इन. सो आई एम नॉट अर्निंग 20%. वॉट आई एम डूइंग, जो बाद में आ रहे हैं मैं उनके पैसे लेके आपको इंटरेस्ट दे रहा हूँ. एंड इवेंचुअली क्या होगा, व्हेन द नंबर ऑफ कस्टमर्स ज्वाइनिंग रिड्यूसेस एंड एवरीबडी स्टार्ट्स विड्रॉइंग देयर मनी, देन आई हैव फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम्स. और ये आपको बैंक्स में भी दिखेगा. मेनी कमर्शियल बैंक्स इन इंडिया हैव अ प्रॉब्लम विद आरबीआई इंस्टॉल्ड विड्रॉल कर्ब्स. कैश विड्रॉल का इशू होता है. आईसीआईसीआई बैंक में दो तीन बार ये दीज रूमर्स हैव स्प्रेड. देयर वाज दिस बैंक महाराष्ट्र, बॉम्बे में एक बैंक था सहकारी कोऑपरेटिव बैंक, which whose assets are frozen by RBI for financial misdealings. All of that comes under ethics. Ethics also comes with how do I deal with my employees? Do I hire and fire? Do I motivate you? Do I support you? Do I give you good working environment? Do I give you good training? Do I give you good learning? All of that is also part of my ethical responsibilities and my ethics as a company. Okay? Then comes, अभी ये वाला पार्ट हमारे दो हो गए. Then let me take the third question, third major question in this regard, which is going to be, ठीक है? So these are, I'll give you the notes for all of this. Just pay attention on the discussion part. The reading material and notes will come to you. They are already ready. I will just share them by in a day or so. Okay? So authority. Now there could be authority. So like you remember, we created a company. We had a CEO, we had a manager, and the manager had subordinates. ठीक है ना? This is a standard company role. So I'll just call it CEO, manager, and the employees. ठीक है? ये हमने पहले भी डिस्कस करा हुआ है, तो मैं इस पे नहीं जा रहा डिस्कशन पे. बट व्हेन वी कम टू अथॉरिटी, authority here means, does one person have a lot of authority over business decisions? Sometimes they end up having too little authority, meaning they cannot do any meaningful change or any meaningful activity because they don't have the power to do it. Sometimes we have undercutting. So if this employee has a problem with his manager, he goes straight to the CEO. What will happen to the manager's role? the manager has been undercut, bypassed. And bypassing happens very frequently in organizations for political reasons. मेरे को अपना बॉस नहीं पसंद, मैं उसके बॉस के पास सुपर बॉस पे चला गया and I have got my work done from the I have bypassed the traditional chain of command. So bypassing and undercutting is also an authority problem in organizations we need to be aware of, and we have to have that authority, that power, that responsibility has to be relevant to the job role. So this is something that you guys need to keep in mind, and I'll skip a few points. I'm sticking only to the important ones. Okay. Then authority के साथ साथ ये एक issue आपको दिखेगा number 4, which is heard of this term favoritism? नहीं सुना? Okay, let me rephrase then. In your school life, you've seen some students being the teacher's pet, and some students आप चाहे building से कूद जाओ, nobody will care for you. Like there are those students who are like जिनको teachers always they are ignored, and some who are always favored. That is favoritism. Now, in a corporate scenario, how do you see favoritism in action? Primarily, you will see it in action during performance appraisals. So, say for example, let's rephrase in our discussion, let's bring it to our level and see. So, let's say there are 2 students in this class who are my favorites. I'm not pointing इससे पहले कि आप लोग you start sniggering, but so let's say there are 2 students in this class, person X and person Y, who are my favorites. So, when paper checking comes and I know their names, जैसे मुझे आप लोगों को किसी का नाम नहीं याद होगा, मुझे किसी का नहीं याद, एक वो तरुण का मुझे याद है क्योंकि वो मेरे से व्हाट्सएप पे नोट्स लेता है, और एक शायद एक कोई रूपाली है इस क्लास में, कोई एक है, अच्छा ये है, चलो एक मुझे 2 नाम याद है जो मेरे से व्हाट्सएप पे नोट्स मांगते हैं, ठीक है. सो लेट्स से आई नो दीज 2 people, एंड एट द एंड ऑफ द whenever the exams take place, I grade them or I mark them very leniently, और मैं बाकी लोगों के साथ बहुत स्ट्रिक्ट हूँ. दिस इज वेयर फेवरेटिज्म कम्स in appraisals. When a boss has a favorite employee, he prefers A, B, and C, A over B and C, then you have interpersonal challenges. जो favored है वो तो बहुत खुश है. What about B and C? You will feel annoyed, you will feel angry. What will happen to your job performance when you are annoyed and angry? Your quality will suffer, your output will suffer, and eventually who suffers? The company as a whole. Because you are an employee is the part of that company. So favoritism has to be avoided. Favoritism के साथ साथ एक और term है, हम अभी discuss नहीं करें because we don't have time for it. Biases. So I may have a bias based on gender, bias based on race, socio-economic background, anything. We could have a bias. Like, if you want to take an example here, there has always been a historical bias against students of distance learning. It's an historical bias. Right or wrong, we can correct it or not, but that is a bias. That's an example of a bias which I can give you. Again, which has an impact on my company. So I have to be very careful to avoid such kind of things. Okay, now comes the question of हाँ, अब इसी के साथ में आएगा, अथॉरिटी के साथ ही आएगा एक और लास्ट पॉइंट इन दिस केस, 2 points actually. Have you heard of the term whistleblower? And it is not somebody who is blowing a whistle like a sports person. No, ये वो वाला whistle नहीं है. Have you heard of the term whistleblower कभी? सुना है कभी पहले ध्यान से? किसी ने? Anybody? You should have heard it. It is a common term. But again, like I go back to my request, please keep yourself updated with business news and things like that, economic times and all. जो आपका मन है जैसे भी करना है करो, but please keep yourself aware. So a whistleblower is somebody. So let me take an example. So let's say there's a company and we find out that the company has quietly been polluting, sticking to the question that he had raised. I am discharging untreated water into the sewage system. Okay, and I as an employee find out. Okay, now I have 2 options. Option number 1 is I tell my boss or my company management and they'll say either you keep quiet or we'll kick you out. That could be one option. Another option could be I could complain to the pollution control board of that particular state. So let's say I complain to DPCC. I think Delhi Pollution Control Committee कुछ ऐसी एक organization है दिल्ली में. Let's say I complain to that organization. When I complain outside my organization or I complain on the media, मैं एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस बुलाता हूँ और मैं कहता हूँ मेरी कंपनी पोल्यूट कर रही है, इसके प्रोडक्ट्स मत खरीदो. That is obviously a dramatic example, but a whistleblower is somebody who, when they unearth financial fraud, they unearth operational fraud, they complain about it. And now comes the question, who am I? So इससे सारे question आता है, who am I loyal to? The company who is paying my salary or my own morality and ethics? So ये एक question है, this is that chicken versus egg. Who came first, the chicken or the egg? And you can debate it endlessly. Ethics is one question. And you will see that in operation, especially when it comes to financial fraud. ये बहुत common है. Remember there was this, हाँ ये भी था. Remember this controversy? Boeing 737 Max? Okay, go and Google up. Just a suggestion for you guys to read. Go and Google up. So 737 Max is a brand of aircraft manufactured by Boeing, and it faced a variety of problems which resulted in two fatal crashes where all the passengers in both the aircraft, both the flights died. It was about 300-350 people, and then this aircraft was grounded across the world. And then there were a couple of Boeing employees who spoke out against the Boeing management, suggesting and giving proof of, I would say, shady manufacturing practices which contributed to these two crashes. Now, who is that guy being loyal to? Loyalty, whistleblower, ethics, all of these combined to create a khichdi. And that is where the challenge comes in. How do I balance personal morality with corporate ethics? So think of it like that. If I am a vegetarian person and I'm employed in a company that makes non-vegetarian food, ये वो वाला. How do I reconcile the two? Are you getting the example that I'm trying to, that thought that I'm trying to put in your mind? Please keep thinking along these lines, because for employers, ethics is a big problem. They don't want whistleblowers, but you and me as customers and shareholders, we want whistleblowers so that they can identify fraud that is happening within that particular company, right? So that's something that we need to take care of. And then comes the last question in this context, which will be, अभी ये list of thought provoking questions का ये last part है. This should be, ठीक है. So let's take a figure. I am paid 100 rupees for X. ठीक है. Now the company says I'll give you a 20% bonus if you do X plus Y. ठीक है. अब eventually क्या होगा? The question now becomes is, should I pay for extra work? Now you are an employer and an employee both. Think of it. Should I pay an employee for extra work? So let's assume a scenario where I come for a class on Sunday. My job description says I have to work 5 days a week, 9 to 5, for example. And 5 days are Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, I have to be in my office. That's the sum of my work X, और उसका मुझे एक fixed amount of salary मिलता है. ठीक है, this is 100 rupees. Let's assume a very basic figure. अब मेरे को बोला जाता है कि आप संडे को आके क्लास लीजिए. Fair enough, accepted. The in an appointment letter, any of you have work X here? You're all freshers, just fresh undergraduate students. Okay, fine. So when you go and see your job letters, उसमें एक होगा the office or your boss. In my case, the principal can assign you additional responsibilities as and when needed. Now it's a very vague term. So additional responsibility can be extra work. It can also be say go take classes on Sunday. Okay? Fair enough. Now, should I be paid extra for doing extra work? Yes. How many of you say yes? Many of you agree with it कि होना चाहिए extra काम है तो extra होना चाहिए. ठीक है? I also agree with that. That's a human way of looking at the part of it. Okay? But after a few years, after a few days, when this thing happens, now suddenly the company says, और यहाँ पे मुझे पैसा मिल रहा है, ठीक है? I'm getting, let's say I come to these classes and I get paid, let's say 50 rupees, which is a significant amount of money compared to my original salary, ठीक है? So let's say I get this, 20%, I guess, let's say I get 50, थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, I get 25 rupees per Sunday, ठीक है? Now what will be my interest after a few days? मैं कहूँगा मेरी मंडे को मत दो मुझे क्लास, मेरे को मंडे को छुट्टी दे दो, मैं संडे को आके क्लास ले लूंगा. Why? Because I am getting extra. And eventually क्या होता है, once people get used to extra money and then the company says after 2 months, these end. Go back to doing X for 100. But psychologically what happens is, people start to do X minus Z. क्योंकि जब आपने performance appraisal के time, performance motivation के time, extra money is a great motivator. But when it is removed, then it becomes a. So there is a concept of you have to keep these two words in mind, which is a motivator and which is a demotivator. Now, unfortunately, in our case, motivation and demotivation, we had a very small portion to cover, so we've already done it. So I cannot go back. We don't have that kind of time. But a motivator is typically something which motivates you to do extra work. A demotivator is something which reduces your original performance. So monetary rewards are both a motivator, like we just discussed, as well as a demotivator once they are removed. और ये सबसे पहले आपको दिखेगा, you see it in, I'll give you one example, during COVID. During COVID, many companies, especially airlines, they withdrew certain allowances because they didn't have the money, planes were not flying, customers were not coming. They just kept giving the basic salary, the allowances were removed. But once COVID reduced and passenger traffic picked up again, some airlines chose to bring back those allowances and some chose not to. Those who chose not to faced anger from the air hostesses and the pilots for that reason, because before they got used to those high allowances, which were why, but they were not doing extra work, and now they wanted those allowances back because they started becoming a demotivated. So allowances के साथ जब भी आप extra monetary rewards देते हैं ना, this is always a problem with giving monetary rewards. Once you remove them, the employees feel dissatisfied कि मेरे पैसे कम हो गए. But they don't realize कि आपको still पैसे तो उतने ही मिल रहे हैं. ये तो extra काम था ना. But people psychologically we tend to get used to extra income, extra money coming in, and then we have a problem once it is removed. So that becomes a type of demotivator. ठीक है? With me so far? Yes, no. 3 people at low volume. What about the others? Are you guys with me here in the class or not? Good. So everybody is awake. Good. नहीं तो हमें स्कूल में होते ना, they would have made you stand up, face the window, and take 5 deep breaths and sit down. ये स्कूल में करा करते थे हमारे. I still remember that from my school. हैं? ये इतने साल हो गए यार, तो बहुत पुरानी बात हो गई वो. Okay. So it was a school called Saint Columbus. बहुत पुराना. अब तो उसको पास आउट क्या 21 years हो गया मुझे पास आउट हुए स्कूल से. Okay, I just realized. No age related jokes. मैंने आपके papers check करने remember. Okay. Motivation. Remember, scare. Threat is always the best motivation. हाँ जी. तो उससे क्या फर्क पड़ेगा? Right? Okay. So coming back to our work, then comes the next part, which is rewards for work. So ये question हमेशा रहेगा, should I give extra money for extra work and should I give bonuses for extra performance? So let's say for example you take this example, अभी last month की बात है, TCS, you know TCS, Tata Consultancy. So TCS over the calendar year of 2022, they ended up earning a 10,000 crore rupee profit over their entire business. Obviously, it's a huge company, so उनके लिए 10,000 crores is not a big deal. But it will take me 2 minutes to write all the zeros. 10,000 crores कितना होता है? But over a big company, it doesn't matter. And then they started giving bonuses to all their employees, which was 100 plus something without X plus Y happening. So it has it has two perceptions now. One is you worked well, we are rewarding extra performance. Second is that you continue working well, we will continue rewarding. That is where the future part comes in. और एक issue अभी होता है, next year let's say उनका profit सिर्फ 1,000 crore होता है, for whatever environmental reasons profit कम हो गया और उन्होंने bonus नहीं दिया employees को. So अब उसमें employees will continue to be satisfied, ठीक है मेरे को मेरे 100 rupees मिल रहे हैं, और will they be dissatisfied कि मेरा bonus चला गया? ये क्वेश्चन रहता है हमेशा. दिस इज द पॉइंट विच आई कैन गिव यू अ रियल वर्ल्ड एग्जांपल ऑफ bonus and its exit. Then comes a point which we need to discuss is, let me take this in a proper term, employee empowerment. Now what do we mean by employee empowerment? I'll give you one example in my scenario. Okay, so I am under, who is my super boss? UGC, obviously governing a college. Who's my next boss? Delhi University. Then comes my principal. Hierarchy, ठीक है ना? UGC हो गया, then DU, my college, so my principal, my head of department, and ये हमारा 5 member group बन गया, हमारा 3, 4, 5 member, ये हमारी 5 member organization बन गई. और obviously UGC के अंडर बहुत सारी यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं, DU के अंडर बहुत सारे कॉलेजेस हैं, मेरे कॉलेज में there are 3 departments, so 3 HODs हैं, head of department, and there are lots of teachers. ठीक है, दिस इज योर स्टैंडर्ड, एंड यूजीसी इज अलोन क्योंकि वो एक ही बॉडी है. ठीक है, नाउ आई वांट, सो यूजीसी टेल्स मी एंड दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी टेल्स मी दैट यू गाइस हैव 100 मार्क्स. ओके, उसमें से 75 मार्क्स आर फॉर द एग्जाम एंड 25 मार्क्स आर फॉर इंटरनल असेसमेंट. ठीक है, एंड दिस फिगर कीप्स चेंजिंग. आज की डेट में इन माय कॉलेज, माय करंट स्टूडेंट्स हु आर इन थर्ड ईयर, they are giving this as their breakup. So मेरे पास 25 मार्क्स है, उसमें से यूनिवर्सिटी कहता है, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी नाउ कहता है 5 मार्क्स देने हैं आपको अटेंडेंस के. ठीक है, सो आई हैव नाउ 20 मार्क्स, राइट? दिस इज माय लेवल ऑफ एम्पावरमेंट. अब मैं इन 20 मार्क्स में आई कैन आस्क यू टू सबमिट एन असाइनमेंट, I can ask you to give a quiz, I can ask you to write a project, I can ask you to pay attention in class, I could penalize people for using their mobile phones in class. ये मेरी empowerment है. बट अगर मैं कहूं कि नहीं, मुझे एग्जाम 50 मार्क्स करना, 50 मार्क्स के इंटरनल असेसमेंट देना है, am I empowered? No. So this is the scope. जैसे मैं आपको याद है मैं कह रहा था ना, मैं बॉक्स ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, ये मेरा बाउंड्री बॉक्स है. इस 20 मार्क्स के अंदर मैं जो मर्जी करूं, यूनिवर्सिटी मेरे से नहीं पूछेगी, एज लॉन्ग एज आई डोंट टेल पीपल ओके आई विल गिव 5 मार्क्स इफ यू जंप ऑफ द बिल्डिंग, आई विल गिव यू 5 मार्क्स फॉर क्रॉलिंग ऑन द रोड. सॉरी, आई कांट बी वियर्ड, बट रिलेटेड टू एकेडमिक्स मैं कुछ भी कह लो, यूनिवर्सिटी कुछ नहीं कहेगी मुझे. दैट इज द सम टोटल ऑफ माय एम्पावरमेंट, ओनली 20 मार्क्स, राइट? But let's say at an organization, and you would see that especially when you go to an organization which is in customer service. So let's say आप एक airline के representative है, you are sitting on the counter and the flight has been cancelled, and there are lots of angry customers who are lining up outside. So जैसे मैं यहाँ बैठा and there are 20 customers lining up screaming at me कि हमारी flight cancel हो गई, अब हमें आप compensate करो. अगर मैं ये बोलूँ कि सर मेरे हाथ में नहीं है, so मैं most probably मैं पिट जाऊंगा उस टाइम. That's the reality. So sometimes what companies do when you have frontline employees ना, उनको वो थोड़ा सा empower कर देते हैं. So an airline would say, for example, that I give every customer a 500 rupee voucher for a taxi. कि सर सॉरी आपकी फ्लाइट कैंसिल हो गई, आपके पास गाड़ी नहीं है, आप घर ये टैक्सी का वाउचर ले जाए, आप घर चले जाइए, हम आपकी टिकट रिफंड कर देंगे एज पर कॉर्पोरेट पॉलिसी. अब इससे क्या होगा? The customers are satisfied for the moment, एंड दिस इज द लेवल ऑफ माई एम्पावरमेंट 500 रुपए। ये आपको दिखे, आप कभी जाना, कभी कॉल करना, आप कभी कॉल सेंटर में, लेट्स से यू वांट टू रिवर्स चार्जेस इन योर बैंक अकाउंट, तो कहेगा सर मैं नहीं कर सकता, आई विल कनेक्ट यू टू माई सुपरवाइजर, परहैप्स ही और शी कैन डू इट। अगेन बॉक्स, सो मेरा बॉक्स इतना है, मेरे सुपरवाइजर का बॉक्स इससे बड़ा है, बॉस का बॉक्स उससे भी बड़ा होगा, ऑब्वियसली डिफरेंट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, डिफरेंट कंट्रोल। सो एम्पावरमेंट बिकम्स अ वेरी गुड टूल ऑफ मोटिवेशन। अगर मैं एम्पावर्ड हूं, अगर मुझे बोला जाता है तुषार यू हैंडल ऑल दिस केओस, आपके पास 1000 रुपीज का बजट है, अब मैं उसमें किसी कस्टमर को बोल सकता हूँ सर आप एक ओयो रूम ले लो, 1000 रुपीज का है, आप रात रह लो, कल फ्लाइट में बैठ जाना। कोई कहता है नहीं मुझे टैक्सी चाहिए, मैंने उसको एक टैक्सी का वाउचर दे दिया। कोई कहता है मुझे लंच चाहिए, मैंने उसको एक लंच के लिए वाउचर दे दिया। आई एम मोटिवेटेड टू फेस दोज irritating customers and irritated customers who are irritated because of whatever business issue my flight has been cancelled, and I can control them. I am motivated. अगर मेरे पास ये empowerment ना हो ना, मेरे को जैसे दिखेगा ना फ्लाइट कैंसिल हो गई है, मैं एयरपोर्ट छोड़ के भाग जाऊंगा। क्यों? क्योंकि मुझे पता है वो कस्टमर्स आके मेरे से they will fight with me and I have nothing to help them with. I am not empowered. Are you getting my point? So कभी कभी क्या होता है when you frontline, so मेरे केस अभी क्या हुआ, लास्ट वीक I had some issue and I had to cancel my credit card, और मेरे को अपने क्रेडिट कार्ड और डेबिट कार्ड ब्लॉक कराने पड़े थे। So next day I called them up and I said कि आप मेरा reissue कर दो। So the same bank, the credit card department charged me 118 rupees, 100 plus 18 GST, और 118 रुपए लेके उन्होंने मेरे को नया क्रेडिट कार्ड कोरियर के लिए डाल दिया। आप लोगों ने भी करा होगा अपने बैंक को कॉल करके। डेबिट कार्ड वालों का रेट था 199 प्लस जीएसटी, इट वुड हैव वर्कड आउट टू अबाउट 235 रुपीज। उसने he was, because he was empowered and he saw that I am a customer और मेरे को पहले क्रेडिट कार्ड वाले चार्ज लगा चुके हैं, he said sir I'll waive off that charge. So what was his level of empowerment? Maybe only 235 rupees, लेकिन उससे क्या हुआ, कस्टमर सेटिस्फैक्शन हो गया, and what is the consequence? Perhaps the customer stays with the company for a longer time. Are you getting the point that I'm trying to put across? ये इशू है। So empowerment has an impact on motivation, which has an impact on customer service, which has an impact on customer retention, which has an impact on my profits. Everything is, like I always keep saying, everything in the world of management and the world of business is interlinked. Empowerment, that 235 rupees have a impact down the road. So empowerment is very important to give employees a sense of satisfaction and power, and to help them with doing better customer service. These are things that go hand in hand. So empowerment के बाद departmentation we have always covered. Okay, now let me give you my another of my thought-provoking questions. And probably this is the last or second last one that we'll be able to do today, but we'll try and complete as much of this list as we can. Okay, now two questions. Okay, so my office timing are 9:30 to 5, 1800, 9:30 to 6 p.m. ठीक है? And performance is, let's say I have to sell 100 units of whatever product per month. ठीक है? Two questions. Now, there's an employee who consistently comes at 9:25. 9:30 से पहले आ गए, 9:30 से पहले he is on his desk. ठीक है? Open for business, open for work. Good employee, bad employee? Are you sure? Good है? Are you sure? पक्का? Everybody agrees to it? That's the very good point. मैं ऑफिस में बैठा हूं 8 घंटे, but am I doing performance? Is where the question lies. So if I am a company which measures only entry timings, उस हिसाब से an employee who comes at 9:30, so let's say one employee comes at 9:25, one comes at 9:31, one comes at 9:30, 5, another one comes at 9:45. Okay, so in this case, this is the ranking that's going to be there, top to bottom, right? So if we do 4, 3, 2, 1, ठीक है ना, and that gets multiplied with some monetary value to promote motivation, ठीक है, यहाँ तक ठीक है. But is it always necessary that is this employee also going to be productive? Not necessary. So here comes the question. When I'm talking of an employee's performance, his or her capabilities, his or her skills, what to measure? Should I measure only entry time? Should I measure only the entry time into the office and sitting at the desk? Or should I also maintain how productive he is? So there will be many employees who will come at 9:30, who will stay till 8 o'clock, but don't do a lot of work. And there are others who may get a few minutes late, but they'll ensure कि they sit later and they finish the work. अब मैं किसको अवॉर्ड करूं? 4-3-2-1 करूं कि कुछ और मैट्रिक्स लगाऊं? Question. Think when you are the manager of the future. Think that's a question for you, right? Then comes, now I have to sell 100 units a month. So on an average, I sell 3 per day is my average. This is employee A, and employee B sells 90 units only in the last week. And both of them sell, he sells 100 units, he sells 120 units. इसने पूरे 3 हफ्ते में 30 किए और लास्ट हफ्ते में इसने 90 कर दिए. Who is better, A or B? Who is better, A or B? कंसिस्टेंसी है तो A, प्योर रिजल्ट है या प्योर नंबर है तो B. Right now as a company I always have an issue because see if I reward B, उसके साथ प्रॉब्लम क्या है? अगर उसका लास्ट वीक अच्छा नहीं हुआ, so B will end up only with a performance of 40, क्योंकि फर्स्ट 3 वीक्स में 90 किया है, फर्स्ट 3 वीक्स में सिर्फ 30 किया है, और इसने रोज 3 किया है, एंड ही इज रीच 100 बाय द एंड ऑफ द मंथ. किसी दिन 4, किसी दिन 5, किसी दिन 2, एवरेज 3 है, 3 into 30 90 हो गया हमारा. रफली 1-2 दिन एक्स्ट्रा किया, इसने 100 कर लिया. अगर इसका लास्ट वीक में लेट्स से ही फॉल्स इल, व्हाट हैपेंस टू हिज परफॉर्मेंस? इट विल रिमेन बिटवीन 30 to 40. सो कंपनी को कितना लॉस हो गया अब सेल्स का? 60 to 70 depending on where the performance lies. Now what should I reward? So when you talk of performance appraisal, you also need to look at consistency, quantity, quality, because sometimes what will happen, to sell 120 units, इसने कस्टमर को डिस्काउंट दिया 5%, which is what the company has allowed him. ये कहते हैं सर आप मेरे से एक्स्ट्रा यूनिट्स लो, मैं आपको 10% डिस्काउंट दूंगा. So though he has sold more units, but what has happened? It has cost the company more. क्योंकि ये डिस्काउंट कहां से आता है? Who pays for the discount? The company pays it out of its own revenues. So marketing में ये बड़ा क्वेश्चन है, डिस्काउंट देना चाहिए कि नहीं देना चाहिए. दो तो कस्टमर आता है, बट हमारा प्रॉफिट कम होता है. ना दो तो कस्टमर कम आता है, तो भी प्रॉफिट कम होता है. So it's that catch-22 situation. Should I give or should I not give? Not everybody can be Apple and charge whatever they want, and there are customers like me who are lining up outside. भाई जो है ले लो. Suckers, I call them suckers, and I am one of them. So I am not blaming anybody. I am the sucker. So that's where the challenge lies. There's one more question. Like I said, we'll do 2 if we get the time. So we have one more time. Whistleblower हमने कर लिया. चलो, that is something that we have done. Okay, now yes, here comes the next question. So let's say there's a company who has now instituted a systematic performance appraisal system. कहते हैं जी हम आपकी अब performance track करेंगे, ठीक है? So as an employee, I know that in a month I can sell 100 units, but during the month when I'm being tracked, मैं धीरे धीरे करके कहता हूँ कि I sell only 80, ठीक है? And the management accepts that 80 is now my baseline. ठीक है. So 80 के ऊपर if I do my normal 100, I am now getting 20% का. So जो काम मैं normally कर रहा था जिसके लिए मुझे X मिल रहा था, for that same task now I am getting X plus deliberately I slow down my performance during the period of baseline measurement. Again we go back to which word? घूम फिर के ethics. वहीं पे आते घूम फिर के हम क्लास के शुरू वाले वर्ड को हम लेके लास्ट में भी हम वहीं पहुंचे जाके ethics. This is another challenge with performance appraisal. Who determines the baseline? Because baseline determination has a direct impact on my bonus or extra money that I get, which has a direct impact on, we go back, and as an employee ना आपको सिर्फ पैसा दिखता है. You try to rationalize to an employee ना यार you've got less money because there was less performance, the environment was bad, the market was like that, share performance issue था, blah blah blah. Employee कहेगा it's all blah blah. मेरे को सिर्फ अपने पैसे से मतलब. And if you have that kind of a relationship, then you have a problem because that employee is not going to work extra. वो सिर्फ he's working जितना पैसा दोगे उतना ही काम करेगा. End of story. But we don't need that. We want employees who are because when I do a bit extra, I get, for example, customer satisfaction and then everything else जो हमने पहले discuss किया था ये आएगा. So these were the thought-provoking questions which I wanted to do in today's class, and I think we're right on time with the part of it. So I want you guys to just think whatever we've discussed today. These are all questions that when eventually you guys grow up to become managers of your own companies, businesses, some of you have your own family businesses where you will go back to, some will start your own business, some will go work in a company, whatever. Just keep these discussions at the back of your mind so that when you are in a position to make policies and rules, you consider these issues wisely before you end up making something which is implementable under your control. That's the purpose of this entire discussion in today's class. So we'll stop here and we'll catch up from this. Now unit 4 is left. I think we need about 2 or 3 more classes depending on whatever is available. So we should be finishing our syllabus by the mid or end of Feb easily on time. Our syllabus is on time. So thank you for your participation and I'll see you guys whenever if the timetable comes out. So thank you guys. Take care. Thank you.